Hello everyone, for today's video we're doing something a little special. Today we're diving into the best indie RPGs of all time. Indie RPGs take risks. They experiment with weird ideas, unique combat systems, and storytelling that you just wouldn't see in big AAA titles. Well, let's get into the list. Esoteric Ebb is basically one of those games that clearly takes a lot of inspiration from Disco Elysium, but tries to do its own thing with it. The way your character talks to themselves, the heavy dialogue choices, the political themes, it's all very disco-like. But instead of copying everything, the game mixes that style with a fantasy world that feels a lot like Dungeons & Dragons. The gameplay is all about choices and role-playing. At the start, you build your character using classic D&D stats like strength, wisdom, and charisma. And these stats don't just affect gameplay, they shape your personality. Sometimes your own stats will literally argue inside your head, giving different opinions on what you should do, and depending on what you choose, your character slowly becomes a completely different person. If you're into weird RPGs with dark humor, you should definitely check out Felvidek. It's a small indie RPG set in 15th century Slovakia, but don't expect some classic hero story. This game goes in a completely different direction, mixing black comedy, bizarre characters, and surprisingly deep writing into a short but really memorable experience. The game does use turn-based combat, but it's not what you'd usually expect. There are no random encounters, and you don't level up like in most RPGs. Fights only happen at specific moments in the story, which makes every battle feel more meaningful. And because of that, even the simpler fights can feel tense and a bit risky, like you actually have something to lose. Right away, Alabaster Dawn stands out with its visuals. It uses pixel art, but everything moves incredibly smoothly. Your character doesn't just run, she dashes with big, powerful leaps that make you feel like more than just a normal fighter. The combat is where the game really shines. Fights are fast and require you to move constantly, dodge attacks, and switch between melee and ranged weapons. It's worth noting that the game is made by Radical Fish Games, the same team behind CrossCode, and you can tell they've improved a lot. This feels like a more polished and confident version of what they've done before, even though the game is still in early access. Sea of Stars is another beautiful indie RPG, but it's not just about how it looks. Exploring the world is also really fun. You're not just walking around. You can run, jump, climb, swim, and even do some light platforming puzzles. It adds more movement than most classic RPGs, which makes it feel fresh. The combat mixes old and new ideas in a simple but smart way. Enemies can charge up big attacks using something called a lock system. If you hit them with the right attack types, you can break those locks and weaken or even cancel their attack. There are also timed hits and blocks, kind of like in Super Mario RPG, where pressing a button at the right time makes you deal more damage or take less. It keeps the combat active and more fun. Every now and then, a game just shows up out of nowhere and surprises you. The kind of game that feels full of heart, charm, and real passion. WitchSpring R is exactly that kind of game. At first, it might remind you of the Atelier series with its magic and crafting system, but the more you play, the more it feels like its own thing. What's even more interesting is that this is actually a remake of the original WitchSpring that came out on mobile back in 2020. But this isn't just a small upgrade. WitchSpring R is a full glow-up, with better visuals, deeper gameplay systems, and a much more polished experience overall. Volcano Princess is a game built around a simple but interesting idea. What happens when a single father has to raise a daughter all by himself? Yeah, not something you see often in games. The game mixes life sim, parenting sim, and a bit of RPG, and it all plays out month by month. Each month you decide what your daughter does. She can study to improve her skills, go outside and explore, or just spend time with you. As she gets older, she starts to develop her own opinions, and your role slowly shifts from being a protector to more of a mentor and life coach. What makes the game really interesting is how much your choices matter. Every decision you make can shape her future. Tactical Breach Wizards is an indie tactical RPG that just feels fun right away. The gameplay is all about clearing rooms, but it feels more like solving puzzles than fighting. You kick open a door, shout breach, and then figure out the best way to take everyone down using your abilities. What makes this game stand out is how forgiving it is. Unlike games like XCOM, where one mistake can ruin everything, here you can rewind your moves as much as you want. So instead of stressing out, you're free to experiment and try cool strategies. It's less about being punished and more about having fun.
What about
when the Gorgons?
In Wildermyth, it feels like you have your own game master. Like in a tabletop RPG, someone who reacts to your choices and builds a story around your characters as you go. It starts off pretty simple. You control a small group of heroes, explore the map, fight enemies, and go through little story events. But the real magic is in those stories. Every event plays out like a short comic scene, and your characters actually react based on who they are. One might be a dreamer, another could be stubborn, or maybe someone is hiding guilt about their past. Because of that, the dialogue changes, the choices feel personal, and every playthrough ends up feeling different. Astlibra Revision is a 2D side-scrolling action RPG with a strong retro feel, but it has way more going on than you'd expect. The game is fast and very old school, but with some modern ideas mixed in. As you keep playing, the story gets deeper. It's not just a simple adventure, there are twists, and even things like time travel start to show up. Even your crow companion isn't just there for the story, it actually gives you different abilities that you can switch depending on the situation. At the end of the day, Astlibra Revision is a game full of passion. It's got fast combat, a deep story, tons of customization, and a lot of content for its price. Look Outside already grabs your attention right away with its pixel art and those creepy creatures. But what really makes it stand out is the mix of genres. You've got survival horror combined with a turn-based RPG, which is not something you see often. Most of the time, you'll be exploring a building, searching for important stuff like weapons, crafting materials, food, and key items to move forward. Then comes the turn-based combat. You attack, use items, apply status effects, and take advantage of enemy weaknesses. Basically what you'd expect from an RPG. Overall, the combat stays simple and easy to understand. Wartales is a tactical RPG that's all about running your own mercenary group in a rough, low fantasy world filled with war, plague, and messy choices. There's no fixed story telling you what to do. The world just reacts to whatever choices you make. You start by creating your squad, picking their background, and then you're thrown into the world. From there, it's completely open. You can explore towns, forests, mines, pretty much anywhere. Take on jobs, hunt bandits, trade goods, start fights, or even become an outlaw if you want. Wartales is a full sandbox, meaning you have total freedom to shape your mercenary group however you like.
firm is the hand that wields it.
Cassette Beasts is clearly inspired by Pokemon, but it does its own thing in a really fun way. You're still collecting cool creatures, but instead of catching monsters and sending them out to fight, you record them onto cassette tapes and then transform into them yourself. Where it really stands out, though, is how it improves the usual formula. For example, when you get a new monster, you don't have to grind levels for hours. Every creature you record automatically matches your level. And that small change makes a big difference. It makes finding new monsters way more exciting because you can instantly try them out in battle. Imagine a near-future RPG that mixes a modern anime-style world with deep tactical gameplay. That's exactly what Troubleshooter Abandoned Children is going for, and honestly, it ends up feeling pretty unique. The gameplay loop is simple but satisfying. You spend time at your base getting ready, managing your team, upgrading skills, and preparing for missions, then head out into turn-based battles on 3D maps. These missions have different goals like rescuing people, escorting targets, or finishing objectives under time pressure, and once you're done, you get rewarded with money, gear, and experience while slowly cleaning up different parts of the city, each with its own problems to deal with.
자, 고개를 들라고!
Kenshi is one of those indie RPGs that looks rough at first, but once it clicks, it becomes something really special. The world is a massive ruined wasteland filled with different areas, factions, and little stories you can discover on your own. You can start in different ways too, maybe as a lone wanderer or with a small group of traders or smugglers. And here's the key thing. There's no main quest. The game doesn't tell you where to go or what to do. Instead, it gives you complete freedom to create your own journey, set your own goals, and deal with whatever problems come your way. Symphony of War. The Nephilim Saga is one of those strategy RPGs that hooks you right away. If you've played Fire Emblem, the basics will feel familiar. You move your army across a grid, capture towns, gather resources, and recruit new allies. But here's where it gets interesting. Each unit isn't just one character, it's actually a small squad arranged on a 3x3 grid. So in battle, multiple soldiers fight at once, which adds a lot more depth and strategy.
Is in session.
CrossCode is one of those games that feels like an MMO, even though it's actually a single-player action RPG. In this game, you play as a Spheromancer, a class that mixes fast, close-range attacks with ranged combat using energy balls. And honestly, the combat feels really good. It's quick, smooth, and very responsive. You're constantly switching between melee hits, long-range shots, dodging, and blocking. The best part is how the game introduces all these mechanics. It doesn't throw everything at you at once. It slowly builds things up, so everything feels natural as you learn. Last Epoch is a great pick if you're into ARPGs, especially if you're feeling tired of Diablo 4 or overwhelmed by Path of Exile. What really makes it stand out is the class system. Each class has 3 different subclasses, and they completely change how you play. So even if you pick the same class again, it can feel like a totally new build. And the best part? It's easy to get into. Last Epoch does a really good job explaining its systems, the tutorials are clear, you can quickly look up how things work, and it's hard to mess up your build since you can easily change your skills whenever you want.
To spare you.
Despite its old age, Undertale still holds a special place in many indie gaming fans. Undertale isn't special because of one big moment. It's special because of all the little moments. The music sticks in your head, the dialogue is clever and full of personality. What really makes the game stand out is the characters. In most RPGs, you only care about your main party, but here, every single enemy has its own personality, and the best part, you don't have to fight them. Instead of just attacking, you can talk, joke, or interact with them in weird and funny ways. Each encounter feels different, and figuring out how to peacefully solve them is actually really satisfying. Dave the Diver is one of those games that surprises you. At first, it looks simple, a chill pixel art game about diving and running a sushi restaurant. But once you play it, the loop is super satisfying. During the day, you dive, catch fish, manage your oxygen, and decide how far you want to push your luck. At night, you run a sushi restaurant, serving dishes, managing customers, and making money. Then you use that money to upgrade your gear and do it all over again. Simple idea, but it works really well, and it's hard to stop playing. Chained Echoes is one of those turn-based RPGs that feels classic, but also really fresh at the same time. The combat is where the game really stands out. It's turn-based, but it's fast and super engaging. You control a team of 4 characters, each with their own skills, elements, and roles. The coolest part is the overdrive system. If you stay in the green zone, you deal more damage and use less mana. But if you push too far into the red, your team gets weaker, so you have to manage it by swapping characters, defending, or using certain skills to cool things down. It turns every fight into a fun little puzzle instead of just spamming attacks. Battle Brothers throws you into a brutal medieval world with nothing but a small mercenary crew. From the start, you're free to go anywhere. Villages, towns, castles, it's all open. As long as you've got food and money, you can travel, take jobs, and hire new people. The combat is turn-based on a hex grid, and at first, the art looks simple, but don't be fooled, it gets really brutal. Fights are harsh. People lose limbs, get crushed, and drop instantly. It honestly feels like Game of Thrones mixed with XCOM, tactical, unforgiving, and deadly. Even after all these years, Grim Dawn is still easily one of the best ARPG ever made, and it's an indie game. It's fast, it's brutal, and the loot just keeps dropping. The combat is classic hack and slash, quick, punchy, and really satisfying. You start by choosing one of 6 classes, and each one has its own big skill tree. Later on, you can combine 2 classes together, letting you create some really unique and crazy builds. As for enemies, they don't hold back. You'll be fighting huge waves, sometimes so many that the screen feels packed. It can get chaotic, but that's also what makes the combat so fun. Just like Undertale, Deltarune loves to mess with classic RPG rules in fun and unexpected ways. The battles mix normal turn-based commands with dodging attacks in real time, and every enemy acts in its own weird and funny way. The best part is the act system. Each character can interact with enemies in different ways, leading to funny moments, clever solutions, or even surprisingly emotional scenes. And as the chapters go on, things just get bigger. New mechanics, more twists, and some really intense moments. Even though the story isn't finished yet, it already feels like something special. Before you play OMORI, just know it deals with heavy themes like trauma, depression, and suicide. So if you're not in the right headspace, maybe save it for later. At its core, the game is about 2 worlds. One is Headspace, a colorful dream world with turn-based gameplay similar to Earthbound. The other is the real world, where you play as Sunny, a teen who's been isolating himself for years. The real magic comes from how these 2 worlds connect. As you play, the game slowly reveals the truth behind the characters and their past, and the deeper you go, the heavier it gets.
A racist mug.
Disco Elysium. The final cut is a game that completely changes how storytelling works in RPGs. It starts as a murder mystery, but becomes a deep, memorable experience that sticks with you. There's no combat, instead everything is about dialogue, choices, and dice rolls. Your skills act like voices in your head, each with its own personality, reacting to everything you do. Because of that, every playthrough feels different depending on how you build your character. This is easily one of the deepest RPGs ever made, and it still stands out even today.
Auto asphyxiation type to you.
Lower intestine. The term is metabolic and circulatory system.
That's all for today's list. Subscribe and like for more new exciting indie RPG games. That's it, and see you next time.